And that's where I say connectivity. You connect through conversation, not typing, not texting. It's very hard. You want to pick up the phone at the very least, meet on Zoom first if that's somebody's comfort level.
I'm Sylvia Garibaldi, founder and CEO of a well-established marketing training and done-for-you services company, tailored specifically for the modern legal and financial professional worldwide. While it's taken some trial and error to figure out which methods get the best results for professionals who are looking to grow their practices, fast forward to today, my team and I have nailed down and perfected a process that has helped so many of our clients consistently achieve outstanding results and create a legacy for their practices. I created the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast to give you simple, actionable, non-salesy, and results-driven marketing to grow your legal or financial practice like so many of our clients have. If you're a lawyer, mediator, financial, or divorce professional who is looking to become highly visible and wants to create a practice that makes an impact, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 127 of the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast. I'm your host, Sylvia Garibaldi. Today's episode is about one of the most important business skills professionals can build right now, and that is real relationships. Not surface level networking, not collecting contacts, and not showing up only when you need something. So I'm super excited for today's episode where I'm joined by Samantha Graff Benmor, an award-winning Toronto realtor with more than 30 years of experience helping families through divorce sales, estate sales, and major life transitions. Samantha has built her business on trust, on empathy, referrals, and genuine connection. And so this is why I'm excited about today's discussion, because we talk about why that matters more than ever in a world where AI and online platforms are changing the way people do business. Let's dive in. Samantha, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited about today's show because I think that relationship building has really become one of the most important skills in business today, especially for our audience, which are lawyers, mediators, and divorce professionals. And honestly, I think a lot of people are struggling with relationship building right now. And so we're more connected than ever before online. I mean, we all know that. But at the same time, many relationships have become very surface level and transactional. So people are networking constantly. We're adding connections, adding friends. We're liking posts. We're putting comments on. But both you and I really know that trust and meaningful professional relationships still take time. They take effort, they take consistency and genuine connection. And I think that's one of the key reasons I wanted you on the show today, because one thing I've noticed about you is how naturally relationship building seems to come to you, both online and offline or in person. And so you've built a very strong reputation, not just as an award-winning realtor with over 30 years of experience, helping families specifically through divorce, estate sales, downsizing, and major life transitions. But I think also as someone who genuinely brings people together. So whether it's through your networking events, your community initiatives, your professional women's events, or simply the way you stay connected with people, I really admire that. And to me, it seems like relationships seem to sit at the heart of the work that you do. So before we dive into all of that, for our listeners who don't know you, Samantha, how about you tell us a little bit about you and your background before we dive into this conversation?
So, Sylvia, I just wanted to say first and foremost, thank you. I really appreciate and am honored to be on your podcast. I've had utmost respect for you. And just a little note quickly to what you were just referring to with relationships. And I know we're going to dive into it a little deeper, but part of my admiration and respect for you was originally found online on LinkedIn. Then I just knew that there was a connection, and everything I listened to in your podcast resonated wholeheartedly with me. I think I shared with you even in our first Zoom meeting, which then followed with an in-person coffee and
You
another meeting. So this is part of how I build the relationships. But again, we're going to get into that deeper. But what I wanted to acknowledge is that your serve first, then be able to give after. I think that really resonated with me. And the idea of respecting and doing your research before I actually reached out to you to actually build that relationship. But to tell you a little bit about myself, I did start in real estate quite young. I'm now in my 31st year, as you mentioned, and I joined my mother. So I had an extremely top notch role model and mentor and best friend. And I really learned everything from her. I might have modified some things. I think the relationships were always part of what she taught me. She's now in her 45th year. So together,
Wow.
we are
Incredible.
a mother daughter team for everybody who's wondering. We are not sisters. We are mother and daughter, but she's really happy when you all call her my sister. And she is still actively involved. And together, we've really built a reputation through relationship building. And one of the things that she's really taught me is that you are professional, kind, empathetic, and then you become friends. So when she shortlisted my brothers and my own wedding lists and everything, it was very interesting because they were people who her shortlist were clients first and then became her friends. But I find that also one of the reasons you had mentioned we've really found our niche markets in estate sales and in the divorce sales. As these are challenging situations that require a gentle touch, yet a firm professional experience skill set. And of course, in real estate, that comes through whether it's mediating spouses or negotiating terms between maybe there's sibling rivalry, there's emotional attachments in both estate sales and divorce sales. And then just having those skill sets to be able to make all parties feel heard and supported. So I'd say that's really where our strength has come. And I think it's pretty obvious that we're heartfelt. We're not transactional realtors. Like we, in our world, we call them love them and leave them realtors. And we're not like that at all. We are in a position to pick and choose who we work with. And I think actually in the last year and a half, we've actually been 100% referral or
Wow.
repeat. So I
That's
used to have
amazing.
the stat in my head of 94% because that's where it was sitting
Yeah.
typically, but actually the last year and a half is 100%.
That's pretty impressive for sure. And congratulations on the success that both you and your mom have had and will continue to have because it is such an interesting industry in terms of, as you said, estate sales and divorce sales of the biggest asset, which is a home, and how people react in those situations. But before we actually dive into question number one, I wanted to frame this conversation with something that really stood out to me recently. And you and I were chatting about this. So, Demis Hassabis, who honestly, as I mentioned to you, I had no clue who he was, is a Nobel Prize winner and he's founder of Google DeepMind, but he's also one of the leading people that is building artificial general intelligence. He's like a genius in this space. And he recently said that in the next 4 years, the work people do today may look almost nothing like the work that they're going to be paid to do by 2030. One of the things he emphasized, and is obviously tied to our conversation, was that AI, as it continues to grow and explode, as we know, human connection may actually become even more valuable and not less. The professionals who know how to build trust, how to build relationships like you do, like your mom does, and you understand people, those are the people that are going to ultimately become some of the most valuable professionals and most profitable ones moving forward. For me, that was so timely when I read that. And so with today's conversation, it's so connected. I wanted to get your viewpoint on this because technology, as you and I both know, has made it so much easier for us to connect with people. But what do you think many professionals are actually struggling to do when it comes to building those deeper relationships, and why?
I think it's 100% an important conversation to have. What I feel is that when we hear about something new, let's call it AI, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon. And what I think the problem is they sort of leave the past things that were working for them and they leave them and they jump onto the new idea. It's like everybody's in this sort of rush to get onto the new idea, the new platform, and they don't do the research, nor do they take time to ease into it. It's sort of like, think about when you're trying to transition your dog from one food to another. You shouldn't give them all new food. You should give them half and half or three quarters and a quarter. And I think that's where people have left relationships, connectivity in the past. And they're not balanced. Like, think of a teeter-totter. You want to be in the middle. You don't want one up and one down. We always say back to the basics. Look at fashion. It comes back. So I think that, yes, as a realtor, as any professional, you're going to be very nervous about AI taking over your job. I've always said, and I think a lot of the lawyers listening to us right now, divorce coaches, mediators, they're navigating and mediating huge life assets, children. There's no price tag. Your largest asset's your house. In more affluent families, then you're dealing with art and boats and more than one matrimonial home. But at the end of the day, would you really leave that to Chat GPT? Or, getting information that's not from somebody you're looking at, seeing in person, doing your research. And going back to the research point, that's what I'm saying. I think they've missed the boat. People just jump onto the new platform. Now, I know personally, I've done my research. Everyone told me, you're so great on camera. You're so this, you can speak. You have a great personality. Go on TikTok. TikTok is not my platform. LinkedIn is. I'm local. I have a outreach internationally. So I can be that point of contact to introduce you to realtors around the world, actually. But here's actually a really important point. I've traveled the world. And when I go, I meet realtors in person. I'm not Googling and looking somebody up to introduce you to. I have actually met those people in person that I'm referring you to. Big difference.
Yes, absolutely. So when you think about that, there's always that question or the importance of taking those online relationships and moving them offline. So you connect with someone, as you said, you do your research. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because as people are building relationships online, a platform like LinkedIn, we know is incredibly powerful for building referral partners, for doing business to business, for doing business to consumer as well. Tell me, how do you approach that in terms of researching and then the next steps that you take to start to build relationships?
So I do it two ways, and they're sort of inverted. Sometimes I'll just notice, like yourself, I was noticing your posts. And then actually a mutual connection of ours, Leanne, had posted her conversation with you. And I listened to it and I was like, wow, that resonated. It just sort of flowed into another one of your podcasts. And I'm like, that resonated. So thank you to you for getting me through my water workouts, because that's what I was listening to. And I just really liked what you said. So in that case, I met you online, as I think it actually came in conversation with Leanne, that I actually met Leanne originally before, like years ago, before I had even met my husband. And we turned an online relationship into a friendship. I ended up selling her house, selling her a new house. But you don't go from messaging someone online to selling their house. And there are very different ways to connect. For me personally, I find the people I connect with are intelligent, empathetic, kind, like said, sort of serve first. They're not salesy. Actually, let me use Leanne as an example, because, at the time I was single and she was giving story after story about relationships and really authentic. And that spoke to me. And I think Leanne is brilliant in that way to connect to her clients and other professionals. She wears her heart on her sleeve. She keeps it real. She's, not shy about her journey. And those kind of things attract people to you because they resonate with you.
Right.
So whether it's health and fitness or food and travel, I mean, I can't tell you how many relationships I've built through travel.
I want to share something with you that I see come up time and time again. Many professionals I speak to know exactly who they want to attract, but where things break down isn't clarity, it's actually implementation. So they're not sure how to translate that into messaging, how to stay visible, or how to turn that visibility into actual client inquiries. So if this sounds familiar, I created a step by step guide to help you work right through this. This free guide walks you through how to define your ideal clients, identify the right referral partners, understand where they're actually looking, including AI, and most importantly, how to turn all of that into consistent action. You can download your free guide at www.sgandassociates.ca/free-guide. Link is also in the show notes. So you meet people online, and I remember you mentioning something about being very intentional about who you follow and who you listen to, read about on social media, all of that. So being selective and being intentional with people that you resonate with, taking it offline, how do
Yeah.
you recommend people do that? Because the reality is you do need to take it offline to actually build a real relationship,
Yes.
a professional relationship. So how do you do that?
So when I'm going from online to offline, I have a few different ways of doing it. Sometimes I simply just ask for a coffee meeting. Sometimes, and this actually happened in who's become a dear friend of mine. I think she was hesitant and she said, let's do a Zoom meeting because I was following what she was saying and I really liked it. I said, sure. We couldn't get off the Zoom. We had to, but we couldn't. And then I said, we should get together. 'Cause she had shared about her husband and journey, and it just all came up. And we had some experiences. And that's what I say connectivity. You connect through conversation, not typing, not texting. It's very hard. You want to pick up the phone at the very least, meet on Zoom first if that's somebody's comfort level. I said, let's go out, the four of us. Of course, her answer was absolutely. But here's the key: don't ask somebody to do something and not follow up immediately. That's a big realtor move in a positive way. What I'm saying, integrity is my favorite word in the dictionary. I do not say, let's do lunch and never follow up. It just doesn't happen with me. If it does, like, it's very odd, but it doesn't. Then I said that, and I literally, within 24 hours, text her and set up a dinner date for the four of us. Well, that went really well. And then that led to me inviting her to an event that I had. So serve first, right? I created an opportunity for her. Just happened to be a divorce coach and to
Yeah.
meet a ton of family lawyers,
Yeah.
mediators, and mortgage brokers, like all different types of people. Now, this is another thing that I find very valuable. But think about when you're trying to connect with somebody, what do you have to offer them? Why should they say yes to coffee? Everyone's busy, right? You can't just ask for things. I do believe in asking questions. You don't know if you don't ask. But in
Right.
the same boat, know your value of what you have to give to somebody else before you take.
I love that because you're right. It is the serve first, sell later kind of model. And you certainly exemplify that giving first rather than taking first. So when people network or meet for the first time, if you are a take type of person, there's no value. There's no exchange there of value, right? And the perception is probably going to be negative. And I know you're very clear about that in terms of doing your research, connecting, being a giver. I think that leads me to my next question because just identified in this episode that you've built a business that is 100% rooted in repeat relationships, rather. What do you think creates this long-term trust with people? Like, how do you do that? Help us understand what is the best way to start.
I think, first of all, like I said, know what your value is to a relationship. and try not to sell it, but to use it as a tool to make somebody feel like you have something to give. But sometimes it's just simple conversations. Identify your market also, right? Like you do have to know who you're trying to approach. This is actually a great example because I just wrote an article because I saw this post. I'm in a lot of different groups online. And I saw somebody anonymously, of course, asking for a shark of a family lawyer. I thought, well, I know a ton of family lawyers. So this is also like serve first, right? Just help people, be kind, be giving if you have, the relationships in this case. Sometimes it might just be advice. It might be you're a family lawyer and you just want to give advice, but don't sell yourself. Don't be like, I noticed there were people on this thread saying, oh, I'm a family lawyer. Instead, I wrote something along the lines of, I'm well connected and have many relationships with a variety of family lawyers. Why don't you DM me or feel free to DM me so I can hear what you need for your best fit? Like as a realtor, yes, I specialize in divorce sales. However, I don't think they saw me as that person. So there's a fine line. So find where you are useful to the people and the circles that are asking. I know somebody else who told me their name gets passed around constantly as a divorce coach in a medical circle. It just find your circle, but somebody who knows your skill set and say yes to any podcast, any opportunity to speak, any invite to a networking event, and go outside the box. The one thing I find with real estate and family law is that we have a lot of similarities, but we're also very different. But when you can sort of find, when you take those two circles and overlap them, that middle ground there of what works between two industries, you can really provide a lot more for others. It's collaborative marketing and relation building. I know a family lawyer that I was constantly inviting out to some of my husband's events. And finally, I invited her to one of my own. And mine are not all family lawyers. They're everything under the sun. And that's how my brain works. It's connect the dots. I did one recently, head spa. I was like, you need to meet my group of women. Why? I've got a group of women professionals who eat to de-stress and relax and have a head spa. But look how many different industries could go to that head spa.
So you're connecting people, right? That's relationship
Constantly.
building too. And you do that
Constantly.
well as you're connecting people because your network is so robust. You're thinking all the time as a giver, who can I connect this person with to add value somehow?
100% my first thought. Always when I meet somebody, it's almost the buyer to the home mentality, I guess. It's like, and I'm specific. I have a lot of questions, even introducing someone to a restaurant, which is actually another way to connect with somebody. I always tell people, I say, don't just call me for real estate. Want a great restaurant? You want to know and I'm talking around the world because I've traveled a fair amount and I have them all documented. It's what can you offer someone to connect with them?
I love that because it's not always connected to what you do, right? It's
No,
adding value in whatever space you can.
100%.
And people find that really, really valuable. One of the questions I was meaning to ask you is your work involves families going through divorce, estate sales, and transitions, downsizing, and all that. And these are incredibly stressful, emotional moments for people. And so the listeners on this podcast typically work either in the divorce space, family law. There's, of course, workplace mediation, where there's a lot of stressful emotions between people, and, of course, estate planning law. Why is trust, do you think, especially important in these emotionally sensitive industries? And how do you mitigate that?
The reason why trust is so important is that in most of these cases, especially I would say divorce, matrimonial home sales, spouses have already lacked trust in one another. So the most important thing that they are looking for is someone to trust, is somebody who has their back, somebody who hears them. So there are actually two different ways of going about a matrimonial home sale. So you can have one, in the case of Cheryl and I, it's a team. You get both Cheryl and I, but one realtor representing both spouses, or you could have two separate realtors in very high conflict. I do suggest it. I do find that it helps. Each spouse feels that somebody has their back that way and is advocating for them. No different than the lawyers, right? You have separate lawyers. Now, there are some drawbacks to it, of course, because if somebody's playing games, which we know happens in these fields sometimes, one realtor could be in the know of somebody not wanting to sell the house and like just sort of, oh, I'll put my name on the listing and just collect buyers. And the other one is really trying to make the sale happen. But at the end of the day, realtors are not like lawyers. We do not get paid hourly. We are really together motivate sell the home at the end of the day. That's what we're hired for. And that is our job, along with, of course, building relationship with each spouse. I have to say that I've done both many times. I really haven't had too much of a challenge with the ones where there was another agent, actually. I did very well with that, probably because Cheryl taught me from the get-go of my career that it's not just the clients that matter. Your relationship and reputation amongst colleagues, other realtors, is extremely important because you've got to sell a house twice. You got to sell the house first to the realtor, who then turns to the client and says, let's go for this one. I do think that there is an advantage to that. And that's just for the record for some lawyers that I have introduced this concept to or suggested to. One of the first questions I find they do ask is, does my client have to pay double the commission? But no,
Interesting.
it's us, the realtors, who take less, and therefore, even more so, we're more motivated to move forward. I mean, my motivation, what I have found after really focusing, as much as I've done estate sales and divorce sales since the beginning of my career, I would say it's been more focused in the last 10 years of my career. And what I find is that it's much more fulfilling to know that you have helped somebody. These are not transactional at all. There are so many different stages to selling a matrimonial home that people have no clue happens. And some of the advantages, I would also say, as using somebody who is more experienced in matrimonial home sales or estate sales, where there is conflict, especially, we do save the clients money. And what I mean by that is that if we know how to navigate, quite frankly, sometimes really emotionally unnecessary conflict that would be going between the lawyers. And I can give you an example of one I did recently in March during the crazy snowstorms. One spouse, upon us cleaning the house out and getting it, we had already sold it and it was closing, decided to steal the snow blower. And well, not steal it. She just thought she should take it to her other home she was moving to. And we were having a huge snowstorm, and there was still one more visit. And the husband called and said she took the snowblower, didn't agree for the snowblower to be removed. We're about to have a snowstorm, and we have the buyers doing their last visit. And all I'm thinking is, not a smart move for the wife. I'm not going to say that out loud to him. So what I do is I say to him, let me speak to her and see what happened here exactly. Because of course I'm only hearing his side of the story. So I proceed to speak to the other side. And she says, well, he never said I couldn't take. I said, look, here's the deal. You don't need the snowblower at your place, your new place right now. She goes, I don't even know how to use it. That was like my favorite line, right? I was like, then why did you take it? And, this went on for 5 minutes. I have to admit, Steve listened to this conversation and was like, did I just hear what I heard? And I was like, you did. He's like, but you actually got the snowblower back. I said, yep, it's going back tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So that negotiation and mediation would have cost them. I have no idea how much because a lawyer wouldn't have even probably had the patience to do it.
And so
It's
you were
stress.
mediating between the couple, right?
100%.
Yeah. And so that's another skill set I think that, as a real estate expert in divorce sales is knowing how to mediate between the couples to get them to an agreement. And not a lot of people talk about that when you are an expert or a real estate expert, and that mediating between the couple is a skill in itself. Just switching gears a little bit, you also created Sammy G's, which started as a cookie company. I think you originally started it as, right?
Originally, yes.
Yeah. And then you expanded it into personalized gifts. So tell me a little bit about how that business evolved and what the connection was to relationship building, because I think there was a really nice correlation there.
Very, very much so. That's why I always say the core and heart of both my businesses is relationship building. Sammy G's really stemmed from the idea that how do I stay top of mind with a client? I joined my mother, as I mentioned, and she was a top producer, but she wasn't about to bring me in at that level. So I had to figure out a way to attract and build my own relationships. So it started with this sort of joke of these cookies that were home baked, made from scratch. And then I actually met with a friend of my brother's from high school who I absolutely admire and respect a lot. And she was a marketing graphic design person. And I decided, okay, let's make business cards. Let's start this idea. She introduced me to somebody who she knew. And she said, she's an artist. You're a sales, marketing, relationship builder. She said, you guys need to meet. You need to carry her product. So it was a personalized blanket. And when I realized immediately was the cookies are gobbled up and they're gone. They were very good cookies. They were memorable. However, the blankets spiraled into many different personalized gift items because they stay top of mind with people. And I'll never forget, I met a lawyer and I told him about Sammy G's and he's like, oh, I wish I would have known. But listen, I just ordered this amazing basket and I'm going to a breakfast meeting tomorrow and I'm having it delivered. Like all these people are going to see that I gave a baby gift. Well, when the guy called me the next day, he goes, I got to tell you a story of how much I really wish I knew about you before. I said, okay,
Right.
what story? He says, I walked into that breakfast meeting. There was a whole entire table of gift baskets that all look the same. And, they're all neutral because nobody even knew if the baby was a boy or a girl. And I said, yeah, mine probably would have looked a little different on that table because not only do I know the name, like I will ask a client, and this is where I go back to getting the details and sort of that matchmaking. I will
Yes.
always ask. I have a lot of lawyer clients for this business and realtors,
Yep.
obviously. Yes. See anything in relationship building and staying top of mind. So I would be like, is this their first child? Like, and they'd be like, I don't know. I go find out. Double check the spelling. And like to see their child's name on something, like I
Oh,
still
it's
to this
heartwarming.
day, yeah, like in the beginning, I felt like people were like, oh, it's a little bit expensive. I'm like, I'm not the most expensive person, but in the same boat, I have photos of children that are 13, 14 years old, and they got their blanket when they were born. And that's the longevity. Are you really going to tell me that one blanket for $85 is too expensive? I don't know. You do the math on
Right.
that.
Yeah. And I think it's absolutely brilliant because, I mean, it's not just personalized baby blankets, but personalized robes and all those sorts of things that are really memorable. But you're also building the relationship. And so when, give something to someone like that, that's so personalized, it leaves an impression on them. I just think it's just a great way to build a deeper relationship and have them think of you and be top of mind because that was so personalized, right?
I
And so I absolutely love that. I think it's brilliant.
Because it's personal. You touch
Personal.
them.
Yeah,
The words that they used, it was like you as a lawyer care. And
exactly.
that is in family law, just like in real estate, people already feel like you're being overpaid. So make them feel like you actually care. It's not about the money. It's because I want to help you and I want to move
Right.
to the next chapter of life.
Samantha, if anyone wants to learn about your services, the two companies, how could they reach out to you?
First and foremost, I always say LinkedIn because I think you get an idea of someone's personality much more
Mm.
so to feel whether you're the right fit. So I would absolutely say reach out to me on LinkedIn. But we also obviously have a website, thegraphgroup.ca. And I would say my two platforms that I found work best for my market, I would 100% say is LinkedIn and probably Instagram, Facebook. But another thing that I really would suggest to send them to our YouTube page,
Mm.
which is the Graff Group Toronto. I do a series every Monday called Matrimonial Monday, and I use a lot of examples of different experiences I've had and things that could be helpful to you as a lawyer. And also, please, to anybody, whether you're a divorce coach, a family lawyer, a mediator, if I can help refer anyone to you, I will ask you a lot of questions before I actually send you the right fit. So you have to be
Right.
prepared to give me a little more information than I just need a family lawyer. I have a list of questions. I also just want to put out to the family lawyers also. I do have a lot of documents that I've created. I feel like one thing that was really helpful and that I just learned, quite frankly, from experience was that when you're writing a court order for the realtors, it's really helpful to have certain things included in those court orders. And you guys are the language people, but I have ideas of what to include. So always feel free just to reach out to me.
And we know you're so connected. So I encourage anyone,
Yeah,
if you're listening to this podcast, reach out to Samantha because she is very well connected and can introduce you to resources that may be helpful within the region here of Toronto and Ontario. And as you said, across the world too.
especially
Yes.
realtors. And I'm happy to also introduce people to realtors other than myself just to make sure it is the right fit because I do
Okay.
think that's important. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, my mother always taught me that our relationships with our colleagues are quite important as well as with clients and referral sources.
Love that. So we're leaving that on a beautiful note. Thank
Excellent.
you so much for being on
Thank
the show
you.
today, Samantha. It's been incredibly insightful. And I know our listeners are going to be able to take a lot of information from this
I
conversation. Thank
will.
you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone.